Alfonse Funzi D'Ambrosio was born on December 21, 1924. He had a twin brother, the notorious Salvatore Sally D'Ambrosio, one of the most important and dangerous soldiers in the Profaci family. His activities included gambling, shylocking, hijacking, extortion, strong-arm enforcer, and stock securities theft. His associates over the years, aside from his brother Sally D., included Carmine Persico, Funzi's capo and one of the most notorious mafioso to ever walk the streets of New York. He would rise to boss after Joe Colombo. Ferdinand Freddie Red DeLucia, a close associate and partner of Sally D., they would disappear together after the hierarchy feared their growing power. Tommy Ocera, one of the D'Ambrosio brothers' closest allies and associates. A former pro boxer active in shylocking and stock fraud rackets. Dominic Mimi Sciallo, a notorious family soldier based in Coney Island who would also later be killed. And Joseph Little Joey Brancato, a longtime family soldier and acting capo of the Franzese regime. He served briefly as acting boss. Funzi D was a well-known Brooklyn-based Profaci member. He and his brother Sally D were considered top torpedoes in the Carmine Persico faction of the family. Both were viewed as dangerous shooters for the Profaci family. Key Profaci loyalists during the infamous Profaci-Gallo War of the early 1960s, Funzi D'Ambrosio and Junior Persico were ambushed by Gallo gunmen. While sitting in a parked automobile on a Brooklyn street, a panel truck loaded with shooters abruptly cut in front of Persico's car as the truck's rear doors swung open. Firing carbine rifles, the Gallos pegged a volley of shots into the Profaci hoodlum's car, severely wounding both men. D'Ambrosio was hit in the arm and shoulder, while Persico got the worst of it. He caught carbine slugs in his arm, mouth, and hand while trying to block gunfire. This is the incident that left Persico's hand crippled. He would never use it again. Mob legend has it that Persico caught a bullet in his teeth, spitting it out afterward. This is not true, of course, but a bullet did ricochet from his shoulder through his body into his neck, settling in his mouth, so he did spit it out, leading to the underworld legend of his toughness. After his brother Sally's disappearance and presumed murder along with soldier Freddie Red DeLucia in 1969, Funzi would grow closer to a boyhood friend of his brother's from the neighborhood by the name of Tommy Ocera. In fact, only hours after their double murder, an unsuspecting Ocera, lured to a hotel room, had survived a vicious beating with blackjacks and fists at the hands of a half-dozen Colombo soldiers, including Joseph Joe Notch Iannacci and Joseph Joe Butter DiCicco, under orders by the boss himself, who had suspected Ocera of plotting a coup in cahoots with DeLucia and Sally D'Ambrosio to overthrow Colombo and seize the family throne. Only Tommy's tremendous skills as a former boxer helped him survive the attack, which left him gravely injured, unconscious, and requiring extensive reconstructive surgery to his face. It wasn't intended that he survived. After several months in the hospital recuperating, Joe Colombo invited Tommy to his home on a Sunday afternoon. Italian listeners will know that Sunday is a sacred day to the Italian people, typically spent home with the family. Scared to death to go, but also scared to death not to show up, Ocera nonetheless made the fateful decision and proceeded to his boss's Brooklyn home. Upon walking through the front door, Tommy immediately saw one of Joe's small grandchildren scurry through the foyer bouncing a ball. He breathed a deep sigh of relief, instantly realizing that Joe would never allow a mob hit to take place in the presence of his precious grandchildren. After having a candid heart-to-heart talk over espresso, with Tommy swearing his ignorance to whatever might have been plotted by the deceased family soldiers, boss Joe Colombo gave Ocera a pass, swearing on his grandchildren's lives that no further retribution would be forthcoming against him. From that point forward, Funzi and Ocera, a highly successful business owner, Shylock, and family associate, would go on to become partners in several ventures together. Tommy had been active years earlier in several boiler room stock frauds with Sally D. In the late 1960s, Ocera had also designed and opened a very successful catering hall named the Manor East out in Massapequa, Long Island. A popular destination for engagements, weddings, christenings, and other social events, Ocera would later also purchase the multi-acre property which housed the catering building. Funzi also figured in a Brooklyn bank loan scandal in 1972. The King's Lafayette Bank came under fire for issuing over 50 unsecured loans to many mob figures, several of which went into default. D'Ambrosio was named as having received 3 such loans totaling $15,000 in a period of 10 months, giving different addresses and false information for each loan. Funzi would be indicted by the FBI in the mid-1970s for interstate stolen securities with several other Brooklyn hoods. Additionally, Funzi was one of several who suspected that Greg Scarpa was an informer. He brought his opinion to the powers that be at the time, but as a mere soldier, his words were ignored. In later years, he was placed in Capo Pasquale Paddy-Amato's crew. As a senior member, having experienced a lot in his day, Funzi was looked upon by the younger members with much respect. As a third internal Colombo family gang war unfolded, D'Ambrosio would not take an active role in the warfare. He had seen it all before and knew it was a thankless and futile endeavor. Although based in the very heart of the section of Brooklyn which was ground zero for the fighting, Funzi did his best to navigate around the conflict, and as an old man by then, he successfully managed to duck most of the collateral fallout of the war. Alfonse Funzi D'Ambrosio was a very respected longtime pillar for the family in that section of Brooklyn. He was typical of the solid rank and file that formed the cement foundation the Borgata was built on. Grab your popcorn because it's intermission time. As a bonus, we included our video on Funzi's brother Sally D here for your enjoyment. One of the first videos we created on our original Mob Fireside Chat channel almost 4 years ago before this one, so the quality is a bit different than our current videos. And yes, there are mispronunciations, but I did try to clean up the audio quality a little bit. But despite all that, it's still fun to see how we've grown over the years. You can also check out our videos on Freddie Red DeLucia, Carmine Persico, as well as all 3 Colombo Wars in our Mob Fireside Chat library. And while we're in intermission, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below and subscribe if you haven't already. And be sure to visit the Button Guys website at www.thenewyorkmafia.com to read more mobster profiles and mafia history. Now on with the show. Salvatore Sally D. D'Ambrosio was born on December 21, 1924, and raised in South Brooklyn. He resided as a youth at 6957 64th Street. By the early 1950s, he had relocated to 2116 East 1st Street. He was a former GI, having served in the U.S. Army. Sally D. had a twin brother named Alfonse Funzi D'Ambrosio, who also was an inducted member of the Profaci family. Funzi lived just a few doors down from him. Sally D. was an iconic Brooklyn-based mafioso who gained a reputation as one of the deadliest hoodlums in New York City. Caught on a body wire worn by an informant in 2010, family underboss John Sonny Francis reminisced about Sally D. as being one of the toughest motherfuckers to have ever walked the streets of New York City. And this was coming from a mafioso said by authorities to have killed 30 to 50 men in his life as an underworld enforcer. Sally D. is said to have served in the regime of Capo Nicholas Jiggs Furlano, and later Carmine Persico after his appointment to Capo regime. Since the 1950s, Sally D. had been very involved and played a pivotal role in several of the most notorious incidents in gangland history, including the killing of Gallo Gang torpedo Joseph Joe Jelly Gioeli and the attempted murder of Gallo faction leader Larry Gallo. He was also centrally involved in several other killings that were not as well publicized. His criminal activities included bookmaking, truck hijacking, receiving and fencing stolen goods, shylocking, extortion, stock thefts, jewelry heists, strong arm, and murder. He listed his legitimate business as the owner of a Sheepshead Bay fruit and vegetable market. D'Ambrosio had a police record since at least 1946, including arrests for petty larceny, twice for assault, vagrancy, criminally receiving hijacked property, grand larceny, interstate theft, 2 counts of felonious assault and attempted murder, and 2 counts of attempted police bribery. In 1946, he was one of 5 young hoods accused by Nassau County Police of stripping 2 motorcycles and draining gasoline from gas pumps at a service station. Among his co-defendants was future Bonanno soldier Robert Bobby Lino. They were all charged with petty larceny. In 1950, he was one of 14 hoodlums in 3 states indicted in a $150,000 truck hijacking case. The FBI alleged the gang had snatched a tractor-trailer loaded with expensive woolens. 6 men from New York City, 7 from New Jersey, and 1 from Pennsylvania were involved with taking the large load from the Mahasik Transportation Company of Jersey City, New Jersey, on October 13 from a Manhattan parking lot after the driver had paused for a cup of coffee. Among those arrested with D'Ambrosio were Martin Sussman and Frank Siegel, convicted burglars who were on parole, Morris Schoenfeld, another parolee from Comstock State Prison, Max Friedman, Aaron Urim, Anthony DiMarino, and Sidney Sid the Bug Rabinowitz, all known Brooklyn hoodlums, New Jersey brothers Benjamin Benny Michaels and Peter Pete Michaels Macchia, and a father named Dominic Critelli and his 2 sons, Anthony and Orlando Critelli, all from the Jersey City area. The Brooklyn-based Joseph Red Traina was an important member of the Gambino family and the son of Capo Giuseppe Joe Traina. Nathan Weiss, a businessman who had originally fingered the load for theft with his buddy Siegel and who moonlighted to fence the load. Rabinowitz and Friedman were the contact men who had reached out to the Italian mob in order to initially set up the hijacking. Originally, the thieves were told the load was valued at $75,000. When they discovered it was worth a lot more, double in fact, and realized they'd been lied to, D'Ambrosio and Traina took Siegel and Nathan Weiss to the basement of a Brooklyn candy store and beat them severely with pipes and rubber hoses, threatening to kill them if they didn't deliver the correct amount of monies after fencing them. At the time of their arraignment in court, prosecutors noted that although it was 6 weeks later, Siegel still bared the marks of that vicious beating. It was also noted that both Friedman and Rabinowitz had recently been arrested and convicted of possessing stolen mail from another missing cargo load. In October of 1961, Sally D. was being hunted by police for questioning in connection with the murder of former Profaci soldier and Gallo loyalist Joseph Magnasco and the attempted strangling of Lawrence Gallo. Authorities issued a nationwide alert for D'Ambrosio, who went missing for months before he surrendered to authorities. Sally D's 22-year-old beautiful girlfriend, Palma Vitale, was jailed on criminal contempt charges after she refused to testify before a Kings County grand jury investigating the violence connected with the Gallo-Profaci mob war. She was convicted of contempt of court but acquitted of a perjury count. She was accused of hiding D'Ambrosio from the police after the attempt on Larry Gallo's life and refusing to answer questions about his whereabouts. She later received a suspended sentence from a sympathetic judge who scolded her, saying that she had no business associating with a worthless character like D'Ambrosio. In a related criminal case, D'Ambrosio was indicted on 2 counts for the attempted bribery of the 2 lead detectives handling Palma Vitale's contempt and perjury case that was probing Sally. He tried to influence their testimony and attempted to have them use their position to dismiss the case against her. Also in 1961, while investigating the gang warfare, Police, while acting on a tip, raided a Sheepshead Bay apartment, arrested 4 people, and seized a small arsenal of weapons said to have been stockpiled for the upcoming factional war, including 6 rifles, 2 shotguns, a sawed-off shotgun, a .38 revolver, and a supply of ammo. They were said to be minions of D'Ambrosio, and among those nabbed was future Gambino hood Greg DePalma and a future Colombo soldier, James Jimmy O'Toole Spitaleri. Authorities also recovered a truckload of hijacked clothing valued at $8,500. They were charged with receiving stolen goods, grand larceny, and violation of the Sullivan laws. Known criminal associates of D'Ambrosio over the years included such top Brooklyn mobsters as Giuseppe Joe Profaci, Joseph Colombo Sr., Carmine the Snake Persico, Joseph Crazy Joe Gallo, Lawrence Gallo, John Sonny Frances, Nicholas Furlano, Alfonse Funzi D'Ambrosio, Thomas Ocera, Ferdinand Freddie Red DeLucia, Joseph Joe Jelly Gioeli. Nearly the entire Profaci Borgata and most of Brooklyn's top mafiosi, as well as that of the other 4 New York families, either knew or knew of D'Ambrosio. Whoever didn't know of him soon found out with some very highly publicized incidents. D'Ambrosio and his close associate Carmine Persico gained gangland infamy for the attempted strangling of Larry Gallo at the Sahara Lounge in Brooklyn in 1961. This assault would be one of the pivotal events to ramp up the violence between the Profaci and Gallo warring factions. Pretending to still be allied with the Gallos, Junior Persico met with Larry to discuss their delicate state of affairs and smoldering conflict within the family. But once Larry showed up at the bar alone for the meeting with Persico, Sally D came out from the shadows of the bar and quickly looped a garrote around Gallo's neck, with Sally D and Junior at opposite ends tugging to squeeze the life out of their adversary. Gallo collapsed to the floor with his would-be killers descending to the ground along with him, still pulling at the taut rope, within seconds of finishing him off, when a neighborhood New York Police Department patrolman happened into the bar, just making his rounds, checking to see that everything was okay. The nervous bartender, Charlie Clemenza, a Profaci family associate, tried to wave the cop off, letting him know all was fine when the officer noticed feet sticking out from behind the corner of the darkened bar. He started to question what was going on as he walked toward the unconscious Gallo. At that moment, Sally and Junior raced out from a darkened corner where they had hidden, knocking the cop on his ass, and ran outside to make their escape in a waiting getaway car. As they exited the bar, the policeman's partner, Officer Melvin Bly, saw the commotion and tried to stop the assailants. Sally D raised his revolver and shot Bly square in the face, enabling the 2 Profaci hoods to escape. Bly survived. Needless to say, the NYPD didn't take kindly to that and soon began an intensive and relentless search for the shooters. As a side note, this intense scene was recreated several times in film, the most memorable of which was the scene in The Godfather, with the Risotto brothers attempting to strangle Frankie Five Angels Pentageli in a Brooklyn bar. As another side note, this incident is also how Junior Persico gained his second nickname of the Snake for his duplicity in betraying the Gallos. Another strategic murder recreated on the silver screen was the real-life killing of Gallo torpedo Joe Jelly Gioeli. A close lifelong friend of D'Ambrosio and Persico, as well as the Gallo brothers, Joe Jelly accepted an invitation to go deep-sea fishing on D'Ambrosio's boat off Sheepshead Bay for a nice day of sun and mob fun. Remember, this was before the official split in the Gallo faction, while the gallows believed the other soldiers, like Persico and D'Ambrosio, were still allied with them. The three buddies went out together, but only two came back. Mob lore has it that Gioeli was shot and dismembered on deck, and then his body parts thrown overboard into the ocean to let the sharks eat the deadly gallow loyalist, neatly disposing of any evidence. Several days later, a car sped down President Street in Red Hook, and Profaci operatives threw a package out the window onto the sidewalk in front of the Gallo headquarters at 51 President Street. When Gallo gang members who were present unwrapped what turned out to be a topcoat they recognized as Joe Jelly's, they discovered several large dead fish inside. The message: Joe Jelly sleeps with the fish. This was another iconic scene recreated in The Godfather. It's the one where Tessio comments, "Luca Brasi sleeps with the fish." But it actually happened in real life, and this was who Sally D was. Fast forward to 1969. Boss Joseph Colombo had been elected to be the representante of the entire Borgata in 1964. Colombo soon completely revamped and remodeled the family, restructuring the hierarchy by demoting certain older, less active men who had been capos and elevating others to their posts. Younger, more ambitious mafiosi, who in his mind would better carry the rank-and-file soldiers into the future and produce more revenue for the family in doing so. But strangely, he did not elevate D'Ambrosio, despite Sally certainly deserving the promotion for all the service and work he put into the Borgata over the years. Even suggestions and a personal request by Carmine Persico and some of the other well-thought-of members did little to sway the boss. Junior and Sally himself supposedly had a talk with Joe Colombo about this very subject, but still, nothing. In fact, within several months of their little fireside chat, Sally D and his close friend and sidekick, Ferdinand Freddy No-Nose DeLucia, another feared family soldier and top gunzo, disappeared. Neither of them were ever seen again. Through the years, word had come out that the true reason for killing D'Ambrosio and DeLucia was that boss Joe Colombo had feared their ambitions. It is alleged that he had gotten the word, or had just gotten the gut feeling, that they had set their greedy mafioso eyes on the boss's seat, his seat, and were planning a coup to overthrow him and seize power in the family for themselves. Whatever the true reason or reasons for their Houdini act and presumed murder will never be known. Whether they'd actually planned to overthrow Colombo is a mystery as well. What is not a mystery is that Salvatore Sally D. D'Ambrosio was 46 years old at the time, and Ferdinand Freddy No-Nose DeLucia, or as he liked his friends to call him, Freddie Red, who was only 39 years old, were never seen again. The year was 1969. As an end note, future Colombo soldier Tommy Ocera, one of Sally D's closest young associates, whom he was grooming for great things, was almost killed along with his boss and DeLucia that fateful day they disappeared. Ocera was to accompany them, but was told to meet up later. Tommy missed the Grim Reaper at that moment, but hours later, Tommy got his buckwheats. Lured to a Manhattan hotel room, he was beaten by a half-dozen hoods with blackjacks and pipes, intent on killing him. He survived. But that's a story for another day, one which we'll discuss more in depth in a future episode. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Mob Fireside Chat presented by the Button Guys at thenewyorkmafia.com. And don't forget to comment and let us know your thoughts about Sally D or any of our other mob tales. You can also visit thenewyorkmafia.com and indulge yourself in many more tales of the underworld. Until next time.